Hey guys, Darkman here, and welcome back for Bleach chapter 650, no, 660, no, 666, I can't wait for that chapter, 664 review, Gift Ball, or a gift, or the gift, one of the two, I can't. Again, I always forget before I start the video, whatever. So we start off the chapter, like, asking, just like coming out of, like, the supernova gift wall, which I didn't know was like an attack, or if it's like behind him, or if he's like inside of it. So kind of unclear, I still don't get it. But he's basically just coming out and saying like, well, if it changes 48 times per second, which in the last video I got wrong, I actually said it right, like I said like 48 times per second, but then I changed it, I said like, oh, no, I'm not, come on, stupid, it's 48 times per minute, obviously. But you know I was wrong. I mean, he's basically just saying, so all I have to do is not attack for a solid second, and then I'll be immune to all of it. Which it kind of doesn't really matter, considering that Yoruichi's out of the fight. And he kind of goes on, like, talks more like, hang on. Yeah, he's just basically saying that developing an immunity to you guys will all happen in like due time. And he's basically just kind of like, he starts explaining how his power works, like, a lot. Throughout like the chapter, like he says for like 2 paragraphs, like a couple paragraphs, and then he's like, oh, sorry for like the long-winded explanation. Now let me continue explaining. And like, I kind of like see that as like, he's kind of like mocking him, kind of, because he's like, okay, here's how my power works. All right, you got that? Sorry for the like long-winded explanation. Oh, it's just a little bit more. Here's some more information about my power. And because like last chapter, Kisuke was kind of like being like a cocky dick, kind of like he's kind of like dicking with him a little bit. It like following him around, like fighting, just like explaining how it all worked, and just watching him get like absolutely destroyed by Yoruichi. And that's when these ball things start appearing, and then like needles come out of them and they start linking up, and that's when we get the title page. It's a cool title page, except for the title. It's called The Gift, which I don't know if you guys can't tell, but that does not say God of Thunder 5, but it should say God of Thunder 5. Yoruichi needs just one more, like, really, like, a 3-chapter fight. Just so God of Thunder 7 can happen. That's just all I want. All I want in life is for God of Thunder 7. And, like, all, like, the spiked balls things, like he calls it his, well, he's just kind of like talking to Kisuke like, oh, are you already all out of tricks? Have you already played every single card that you have? And that's when all like the ball things start like linking together there, and he's basically just saying like, you shouldn't really look that surprised. All I did was just form a barrier. Now you guys can't really leave. And he calls it the Bleach border. Yeah, alright. Bleach border. And it kind of just says that he doesn't really like super long names, which, if you had a superpower, would you like to have all your names be super long, especially if you had to yell it out like they do in anime? No, you wouldn't. You want to have that stuff as short as possible. And it's actually got me thinking about like the longest name for an attack in Bleach, which I couldn't actually think of. Because I was like, man, Bleach sure does have some long names for their attacks after I read that, but then I was like, I cannot think of a single one. Unless you count any of like the incantations for like any of the Keto, then you get some really long ones, especially when you get into like the 90s sections, because some of that's like a full page of just non-stop talking. And he basically goes on to say like, the Beerite's border is completely indestructible. And like, with Askin, he's never been a character to like overestimate himself. Except for like thinking he could like beat Yoruichi like easily, but he didn't know about like that whole transformation thing. When he said like, it's hard to explain. He is always like the right amount of confidence. He always has like the right amount, the perfect amount of confidence. So when he says something is indestructible, you probably believe that it's indestructible. And Kisuke just kind of said, like, if you didn't want us to leave that badly, you could have just asked. And asking just kind of torch was like, yeah, do I really look that dumb to you? When he kind of, like, Kisuke right now is honestly just trying to buy time, trying to think of something else to do. And he just kind of says, you don't really look like the most loyal guys. Then he retorts with a, how very presumptuous. If it's pure loyalty you want to see, then I'll saturate in more of it than a Pomeranian pup. I'm gonna look at a picture of that and put it on the screen. Unless there is no picture of it and it's just a weird thing that he said. But if there is, I'll just put up random pictures of puppies everywhere. And he says, well, I mean, you're not really that far off. I'm with him because His Majesty interests me. And Kisuke kind of just like doesn't really respond to this. This Asuka just kind of goes on to like say like the real world, the Soul Society, Waco Mundo. His Majesty is the one person that has envisioned destroying all three of these worlds and rebuilding something great out of them. And he's really the only person who's ever thought of that. The other person who can actually do it. And he just kind of like goes on and says like, how many people do you think will be able to do that? Like, when do you think the next guy will come along and actually be able to do that? And he kind of says to Kisuke like, you look like a guy who's seen everything that life has to offer in these three worlds. So can't you like understand where I'm coming from? Which made me think like, so does that mean like Asuka's just been like around for like a really long time and he's seen like a lot of stuff? Which in that case, I kind of think that we needed like a flashback chapter or two for him, like either like a well-written chapter or two okay well-written chapters. I mean, like, yeah, because you know, more Asuka does. Also, it does sound interesting, like adventurer Askin, you know. This thing's interesting. And he kind of just says, aren't you like the least bit curious to see like what Yuha will make out of all three of these worlds? That's when Kisuke just kind of like swipes at him and Askin zips back with like some cool like pattern on the floor. And he says like, oh, you're still able to move with such agility even in here. And now like at this point like Kisuke's all like sweating, like out of breath and everything. And then Kisuke's just kind of like, something like that might have tempted someone like Mayuri. But then again, Mayuri is someone who would like, he wouldn't want to just like sit by and watch someone else do it. He would want to do it. That is what it means to be a scientist. And like, he's basically kind of just calling Askin like a follower, like someone who doesn't want to like actually do something about what he wants. He just wants to watch everyone else do it, kind of like the whole thing. Hence why he really does not fight anyone ever. Or at least that's what I thought. And most characters would be kind of upset by someone calling them out on that. But no, he just like has a super big old smile on his face and he's just like, dang, that's a good answer. And he says, as long as he doesn't really care about what he is or like what he does, as long as he gets to see what Yuha makes. And that's when he pulls out his ultimate technique.
The Cosmic Halo!
No, it's not that. It's called Gift Ring. And when he throws it, Kisuke notices that it starts disappearing. And then he's suddenly like there's like the ring in his eye, like it kind of looks like a piercing. Oh, jeez. Oh. I can just imagine getting my eyes pierced. Oh. Ugh. But no, maybe this is less gross than actually what happened because his eye just kind of explodes. But it still looks like he has an eye, so I mean, better than what I imagined would happen if he got pierced. so that explodes, and it's just kind of, and Asuka just goes on and explains like it's basically like a gift ball, like all of what's happening around you condensed into like one little thing. Shoot, I have thought of like a perfect example of what like to compare this to. Ugh. I guess I'll just use like science instead of like anime on the reference. So, basically, the denser an object is, like the farther it will sink down. Which, you know, the denser something is, like the harder it will like hit you. You know. No, I thought of a perfect way to think about this. No. Because when I was trying to use that the thing, I was just like sciencing. It really wouldn't work because I'd rather have like a thing of like water fall on me than a thing of ice, because ice is less dense than water, hence why it floats. But ice falling on you would hurt more. Basically, he's just I remember what it was. It wasn't from anime or manga. Think of it like Ant-Man, because it's basically like this huge barrier. Like it's a pretty strong attack, but then when it gets condensed down to the size of an eye or well, a ring, it hits with a way bigger impact, and it can basically destroy any organ he hits it with. He hits with it, kind of like Ant-Man. He's, you know, like they shrink him down, and he can like boom, like punch someone. Like he punches with the same amount of force, but because it's like condensed down into like a smaller like surface area, it hits harder. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, and he basically just goes on to explain like he focuses all of its like death dealing potency into one point and forces an instant death, which like it isn't like exactly like instantaneous like death. Like he can hit like any specific organ and kill that organ basically. Like he can't just like throw it like Kisuke's like stomach and it'll just go and just explode or whatever. No, he has to like focus on certain organs and kill those organs off first. And he just kind of says like, sorry, you are just way too strong for like this thing to take. I keep constantly flicking my cloak, my robe, and it's kind of getting annoying. And he says like, I'm just going to have to kind of do this to take you out. Now I'm going to get a little sentimental right here. So, I started watching Bleach way back in, I think, late 2013, like either like near the end of the summer or like September of 2013. And I didn't really think like too much of it. Like I got like the Waco Mundo arc, like Kenpachi, I was gonna say Kakashi versus Noitora. Two completely different things, even though that's a pretty cool fight. But yeah, like I was like, obviously that's sort of like way behind the curve, but then like when I got to that point I was like kind of getting a little bored of it, but then I like found like one of the manga volumes, and at this point I was like a pretty frequent reader of like Naruto, Dragon Ball, Pokemons, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And all that good, and like a lot of other things I'm not going to talk about right now because I actually don't remember what else I was reading at the time. And I was like, okay, so I read it, and something weird I found is that I actually enjoyed reading it much more than watching it. So I started reading it a lot, and I think the library that I found it at had up to volume 50, no. It was when Ichigo was going to first confront Yuha. No, it was actually the volume after Ichigo goes to confront Yuha, because like all the stuff, him getting like stabbed in the neck, all of that happens. And so I didn't really get to like, because you know, and like you read like it on like a weekly basis, you can like go through like all the comments on all that stuff, and like it feels like super cool, like yeah, this is cool. Well, like getting like to talk and like discuss it with everyone else who reads the series. I didn't really do any of that until chapter 600 is when I actually caught up to the series. And then like that was like probably one of my favorite chapters, just because I was finally all caught up. And then I started reviewing it 35 chapters later. Yeah. But ever since like I caught up, it's just been, in my opinion, a better experience because like whenever like they post like a chapter on like manga stream, you can like I can go through and like discuss it with people, or I can like start like any like people who else who review, I can like watch that and be like think like, man, I'm all caught up now. I'm like kind of a part of this now. And Bleach is definitely one of my favorite stories of all time. And like every time we hit like a milestone like this, it just kind of like reminds me like, yeah, this is coming to an end. And I've been having this feeling ever since like the final, I call it like the final battle saga in my head, just because it's like it's all set up for like these like last like 6, I think I counted that out, right? 6 battles, and like once these battles are over, that's pretty much it. It is a battle manga, so obviously once the final enemy is like cut down, that's pretty much the end. We'll definitely get like a chapter, like one more chapter after that. That's really it. So like every time like, because how do I explain this? When I was reading it, even though I knew I wasn't caught up, every time something like a big, huge event happened, I was like, oh, yeah, that's right, this is kind of coming to a close. Like Rukia's Bankai, that was a huge moment. But then it was kind of like, oh, well, but like it couldn't really end until that happened, in my opinion, because she's like one of like the main characters. She is like one of the main characters. And then Kenpachi's Shikai, that couldn't happen. That like we couldn't end the series until that happened. Shunshu's Bankai, we couldn't end the series until that happened, and now my entire moment was just ruined by the kids yelling outside of my Kindle right now. Thank you. That happened, and now like we cannot end the series without finding out what his Bankai was, because that whole stuff was like hinted at like way long ago, and like now it's finally here, I guess. So yeah, let's finish this chapter. Don't say I didn't warn you. Bankai. Kanin Biraki Benehime Atarame. Pretty weird looking Bankai, if I do say so myself. Yeah. Honestly, that was not what I was expecting at all. I was kind of expecting like it to be like a cane, actually, because like, you know, that's always like walking around with. He's always walking around with like a cane. So I was expecting it to be like a cane with like some type of like humongous keto attack. But I can like, granted, his thing is still probably keto. Like, because like that was a huge thing of his Shikai, is that it was like pretty much all keto based. Okay, so then this is pretty much the same. It's probably gonna be like the same thing. Like, other than that, I don't really know what else it could do, unless it's like what's his name? Komomora's Bankai, where it kind of like has its own like weapon and everything, and they can fight on its, like they kind of like move as one. But other than that, it's probably just going to be like something that does like keto with him, probably. At least that's like kind of like what I'm kind of getting at from like all of this. And yeah, that's the end of the chapter. Hopefully it doesn't turn out like Shunshui's, where it like starts off awesome and then it immediately just goes to the worst places. Yeah. So the next chapter we're either going to get like more of a fight, or hopefully a flashback, and kind of both. Yeah, flashback for asking. But yeah, that's the end of the chapter. See you guys next time.